So now that we've had this little situation occur, one thing that's really going to help is adding some good bacteria. So these are little satchels of bacteria that I'm going to add, and these bacteria are going to really help to stabilize this system as quick as possible, so we're not organically waiting for the regrowth of the bacteria after a stressful situation. As food goes, these fish are getting fed prawns, but prawns is pretty much just protein. Yeah. So what I'd be asking is that these pellets here, the Danichi pellets, gets pushed into the flesh of the prawn, and that will give the fish all the vitamins and so forth. These foods are okay, they're all processed. This is the one that I really want, this one. Or Spectrum's probiotics, because that's got the probiotic bacteria in it. Making sure this filter is primed before I turn it on. Running some water through it, getting the air bubbles out. Spray bars, they're big ugly things that sit across the back of the aquarium. They do disperse water, but I don't value them at all because I hate the way that they actually increase pressure on the filter. I would much rather just have a gooseneck. So then the water is going to shoot out like that. That way we're getting maximum water flow. So therefore we're going to get better filtration. And it's not a big ugly thing that I've got to look at. After a very stressful situation like this, water going cold and the water going acidic, now what I'm worried about is not raising the pH up too quickly. So the pH was very acid. Now it's not very acid, it's towards neutral now. But I really want a small amount of this added every few hours until the pH actually gets alkaline. And you can see the middle dot is starting to go a little bit orange now, whereas before, and you look in the previous video, it was fully yellow. So I want this to slowly raise. But for these situations, I would rather know from a pH test, so an actual test of the pH, then adding a bit of KH, then a few hours later, test it again, then add a bit of KH until we get the water nice and alkaline. But I'd rather it happen slowly. I don't want it to happen quickly. At the moment, this water's 22 degrees after doing a bit of a water change. So that heater's just gonna quickly get it back to 25. It wasn't 25 when I got here, but I really wanted it 25. So I'm thinking these fish should start coming good once their immune system starts to return, and once the temperature slowly heads more towards 25 and the pH starts to head more towards an alkaline pH. Now, doing these resurrection jobs cannot be one step backwards to get a step forward. So when you start to make changes in the environment, we don't want to make the changes too quickly because the fish's immune systems are compromised right now. And so as we're improving the environment, sometimes the fish look like they're taking worse turns. And it's not really until the immune system's back and the water quality's been good for a while that we're actually out of the woods. We need to be monitoring these fish during this time because they're very susceptible to problems right now. So I've just propped up the outlet so I get a little bit of surface agitation. At the moment, the fish are sort of looking like they're in shock. That is what they do when they're in stress, and aiming to the surface like that is typical stress response. So once this pH is slowly raised and once the temperature slowly returns, I'm really expecting these animals to come back to good. But right now it certainly looks like a step backwards. And that's not uncommon when we're fixing a situation. So the fish are really looking like they want some extra oxygen in the water. There is a couple of air stones, so you'd sort of think it was okay, but the surface of the water is relatively flat. I've got some surface agitation here. But like an extra power head for a bit of water flow certainly wouldn't hurt for the future as well. I'm a big fan of good water flow. Right, so I've just done a spin test on this tank. The alkalinity is relatively high, and that's because I did add some neutral into the water. The hardness is quite good, that's at 12. pH is still slightly acidic. I've since raised that a little bit. Phosphate's very high, so water changes are a good idea. Now your big problems are here. So you've got high ammonia. Now that means that raising the pH is becoming dangerous because if you raise the pH, what you're actually doing is creating more ammonia gas than ammonium, and there is a little bit of nitrite. That's because there was some rotting prawn in this tank. So obviously when the water got cold, the rotting prawn has been rotting the tank, and the nitrate is super high. So what this tank needs is some drastic water changes. I might even just do another one now, and it needs this ammonia to come down. And in the meantime, we have to detoxify the ammonia. So putting a decent dose of this in daily, like a 5 times dose, that will help to detoxify the ammonia. Otherwise, the ammonia is going to kill these fish. And so the fish have gone into shock, and that's because we are trying to improve the water quality. But in taking a step forward, it sometimes requires a step back, and that's because the ammonia gets more toxic. So we're bonding up the ammonia, and I'm going to do another water change now. So I've done a water change, but the water's still really bad. I'm doing a gravel clean. I'm still pulling a lot of crap out of the gravel, so I'm going to persist with more of a water change, trying to improve this water quality, because right now it's really not that good. Now, electronic thermometers are great, but when they run out of batteries, you do have to replace the battery. It is amazing how often I come to someone's house and find an electronic thermometer that's not actually working. Now, I'm slowly raising this temperature up at the moment. Temperature is about 23 degrees. Fish are currently in shock, so we just need to manage this. The pH alert's starting to change now, so I'll check on the pH, I'll check on the ammonia, and see where we're at after a second water change. Right, so I've done the spin test again. KH is good, GH is good, pH is improving a little bit, phosphate is still on the high side, ammonia has improved, there's still a bit of nitrite, and nitrate has improved a little bit. So the second water change has improved the situation. So now it's just a matter of being a little bit patient and trying to do another water change ASAP, because we don't want to shock the fish and do too much at once, but at the same time we do have to control these levels. So water changes will help get the ammonia down. The good bacteria that I've added that's in these little satchels that are floating around in there, they'll take time to work, and they will help to add good bacteria to break the ammonia down. And then I want a 5 times dose of that added every day to get rid of ammonia, and that will bind up the ammonia. So everything has improved dramatically, but it is still not out of the woods. pH is starting to raise, and pretty much daily water changes wouldn't hurt until these fish come good. So now the temperature is 24 degrees. So the temperature's okay now. It's about 24 degrees. So it's much better than it was, but it's still absolutely not perfect. So the fish have gone into shock because we have improved it. It's one step backwards to get a step forward. So these animals just need to be watched now, and definitely not fed until they're looking like they want food.